As the United States continues to break records for opioid overdoses year after year, federal lawmakers are very concerned about the health ramifications of marijuana. Congressional lawmakers are actually responding to some newer studies that show that smoke inhalation, meaning marijuana smoke inhalation, could lead to emphysema. And when it comes to underage individuals using pot, it could lead to some developmental issues. Now, Giselle Reva is an assistant professor at the University of Ottawa whose research last year in the Journal of Radiology linked marijuana smoking to the lung condition known as emphysema. And before her study, she said, what was in the literature was extremely limited because it was hard to study marijuana. The reason why it was hard to study it is because of the federal prohibition on marijuana, the class 1, classification, or Schedule 1 classification, I should say, of marijuana makes it incredibly difficult to study and do research on. Now look, do I think marijuana is completely harmless? No, I don't think it's completely harmless, and I would prefer for minors to not smoke or use marijuana. There should be regulations. Legalizing and regulating drugs like marijuana does make sense. But it is a curious focus considering we have gotten nowhere near dealing with the very serious opioid epidemic that we continue to deal with in this country. I mean, the number of people who die year after year thanks to synthetic opioids like fentanyl is devastating. It is devastating communities, devastating families. It's something that we absolutely should respond to and do something about. And honestly, I haven't really seen much policy, certainly not policy that has shown or proven to work.
Yeah, and so look, I have another complaint. I read this very long, giant, if I'm being honest, hatchet job against marijuana in Politico. And mainstream media always prides itself on being balanced. They say, well, we quoted a corporate Democrat and a corporate Republican, and they both agree that tax cuts for the rich are awesome. And that's their sense of balance, right? And by the way, right-wing outsiders, terrible, left-wing outsiders, terrible. But in this story, there's no balance at all. It was just marijuana could have this problem. It could have that problem. We haven't studied it at all, but it could have this problem. And it was like 8 pages of potential problems that it could have without a single mention of its upsides. Where's the balance? So look, guys, I'm with Anna. Should we study marijuana? Of course, we're secular progressives. We believe in science. And does it have some problems? Of course, when you inhale it, of course it's gonna create some of the similar problems as tobacco, and maybe better, maybe worse. I think likely worse in one study that I saw. And I wanna know its downsides. Who wouldn't wanna know the downsides? Of course. But you've got meth and fentanyl destroying the country. What do we have, 100,000 deaths?
Let's get to those numbers because that's what was so jarring about Politico's reporting on this. Because it came across as scaremongering about marijuana.
No, I thought they should have called the article Reefer Madness.
Honestly, but it left out any information, any details about the drug epidemic that is ravaging communities all across the country. So I want to get to those numbers right now. So in 2020, for instance, this is graphic 7. In 2020, 91,799 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States. The age-adjusted rate of overdose deaths increased by 31% from 2019 to 2020. 82.3% of opioid-involved overdose deaths involved synthetic opioids. So there's a very real problem with fentanyl, right? I mean, sometimes I feel like there's this, I don't want to say that the left minimizes it, right? And it's easy to look at these cops who are just in the vicinity of fentanyl and they pretend like they're gonna collapse as a result of that and make fun of it. But it is a real problem, we all know it, and there needs to be an actual robust solution to it to get people help, okay? And it needs to go beyond, first of all, rehabilitation for drug addiction, especially inpatient treatment, is astronomical. I have a close friend whose brother struggled with drug addiction. He ended up homeless as a result, okay? Their entire family went bankrupt paying for treatments for him. No one should go bankrupt in an effort to make their lives better and overcome a drug addiction, Okay, there need to be real investments into that. We're not having a conversation about that. Instead, we're having a conversation about regulating pot. What?
Yeah, and again, you want to regulate it in terms of, hey, here's how the regulations that you could, by which you can sell it. Here's the financial regulations. Great. We're progressives. We believe in regulation. And by the way, don't get rid of this insane cash system. There's security guards in front of every pot shop because why don't you put up a giant sign saying, "Come rob here." Create more crime because we won't let them deal with anything but cash.
Right, exactly.
Right? So it's an unbelievable call to violence that has nothing to do with pot. It has to do with how government is treating pot, even in states where it's legal, because the federal government will not allow them to use credit cards and to use like different things and to bank like every other business would.
Banks and financial institutions are not willing to carry out transactions with dispensaries when on a federal level, marijuana is still again, Schedule I drug, and it is still prohibited. So they don't want to break any federal laws by doing business with dispensaries. That's a huge problem.
Hey, I use that brand. Okay, so look guys, so we're very honest obviously and open about our political perspective. We're progressives, as I said earlier, right? But we're nonpartisan. And we don't take sides. So in the case of fentanyl, for example, you got cuckoo Republicans who are like, yeah, they're passing it out on Halloween. All our kids are gonna die. And oh my God, the Mexicans are bringing it in with the help of the Chinese. When it's, in fact, as Maxwell Frost showed earlier today, 85% of it is brought in by American citizens, right? So on the other hand, it feels like sometimes the Democrats are like, no, it's not a problem at all. What do you mean? It's 91,000 people died from overdoses. Fentanyl and meth are giant problems that we need to do something about. And when you go to do something about it, sometimes people on the left are like, no, freedom. You're
like
not
don't compel people to
get help.
Yeah,
right.
And when I say help, I don't mean just safe injection sites. I'm talking about no, you committed a crime and you did so while high on X number of drugs. Instead of going to jail as a result of your crime, we're gonna give you the option to get treatment. That is not a bad thing, that is a good thing. Many people who were compelled to get treatment actually turned their lives around. I don't know why that's a bad thing.
Look, some woman died the other day in LA in front of a restaurant on the sidewalk. And she had
it was in my neighborhood.
Yeah, and she had an addiction problem. And the local people tried to help her by getting her into treatment. And it was the left who fought them and said, no, don't help her because of freedom. It doesn't make any sense at all. So this is not partisan at all. Both sides, I think, are being absurd. So, and in terms of the media, there's so much to write about the problem of fentanyl and meth. It's totally out of control. Yep. Yet you're gonna turn your attention to marijuana and make it sound like the most dangerous thing. They're like, it could lead to a lot of accident, a lot of deaths through driving while high. Well, look, first of all, driving while high could be a real problem.
Yeah, it could be. That's right.
But you didn't have any information. You didn't have any data. You didn't say, hey, look, here's the number of deaths that you have because of this situation. It just seemed like I'm gonna throw everything against the wall against marijuana. It almost felt like a sponsored piece, like as if like the alcohol or some other company was like, here, I need you to write the most biased thing you could ever do about the least dangerous drug.
Yeah, and look, let me just be clear, okay? What is being proposed, I really don't have a problem with. The problem that I have is the emphasis on a relatively harmless drug, relative to what is destroying communities and families all across the country, right? So it's relative, I wanna be clear about that. So I'll give you examples of what they're thinking about. Let's go to graphic 5. Congressional lawmakers who supported legalization are now talking about standards on dosing, mandates for child-proof containers for edibles, totally in favor of that, no
100%.
problem, and advertising restrictions aimed at protecting children. They're also concerned about high-potency cannabis and its effects. Okay, but we need to see the actual data behind that, right?
100%. So if you say, hey, listen, let's make the edibles, at least give me some option that doesn't make the kids want to eat it. Please, I'm begging you, as a customer, I'm begging you, right? They're like, hey, you want rainbow colored gummy bears? I'm like, no, I don't want that. That's like, why don't you just hang a sign around it saying, kids, come try this, right? So, and the market should also take care of that. You want to do research on marijuana, do all the research in the world, we want to know, right? but you're like worried about high dosage cannabis with no research. You're making it seem like it might be super dangerous. Like, my main research on high dosage cannabis is where can I get some? Okay. But if you show me downsides, okay, I'm totally open to it.
Yeah.
But don't prejudge it in this weird article that makes it seem like it's like the most dangerous drug in the world.
Yeah, let me show you what the dangerous situation is. Let's go to the last graphic for all you visual learners out there. I tend to learn better with visuals as well. So as you look at that graph, or I should say that image of or map of the United States, all of the blue states indicate states that saw an increase in overdose deaths in 2020. There's only like a handful of states that did not see an increase in overdose deaths. Overdose deaths are a real problem. Let's focus on that. Let's actually save people's lives.
And I'll give you a stunning fact in case you don't know it. The number of people who've died from overdose from marijuana is 0, ever, never happened. All those deaths are fentanyl, meth, heroin, and other hard drugs. And by the way, pharmaceutical companies that pushed opium that was dressed up as a pill and sold it with guys in suits. Those pharmaceutical companies advertise all over mainstream media. And we only found out about the problems of OxyContin after it had killed hundreds of thousands of people. But now you're preemptively worried about maybe some problems with marijuana. I find your concern a little disingenuous. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.